This is Mocha. She is one of our January 2024 kill pin rescues. She shows some pretty interesting behaviors that I'd like to discuss. So here I'm outstretching my hand, and typically the horse's natural instinct is to smell it if they're comfortable enough. There we see her look away, which is a stress indicator, so I back off and we're just going to wait here. And now we see a release, which tells me she was feeling a lot of stress and tension from my hand even being outstretched towards her, which again is not the natural inclination for a Mustang. They're very naturally curious if that hasn't been altered by a human already in the past. So once she's calm, we try again, and we see that. A nip, and ears pin, and an obvious change in her facial cues there, followed by a lick and chew, and her facial cues returning to being pretty relaxed. This behavior holds a ton of information. And first and foremost, this behavior tells me that she has interacted with humans before, and the humans have tried to force her to be okay with touch, most likely by kind of pinning her in a corner and just approaching and trying to touch her out of brute force. And that she has developed this biting response as a means of scaring away the human that is bothering her. And the fact that immediately after she did that, she immediately licked and chewed and went back to being relaxed tells me that this tactic has probably worked very well with her in the past. Now, in a typical scenario with a typical quote-unquote horse trainer who uses pressure and release, even with these wild horses that don't understand that, after Mocha showed this behavior, she was likely run around a round pen, or if the human got scared or intimidated by her biting like this, they would just back off, and she learns that this behavior works to keep the scary human away from her. In the event that round penning is the chosen method of quote-unquote fixing this behavior, the wild horse then only learns that humans are even more scary and that they were right in the first place to be fearful of them, which is what caused the response of nipping like this in the very first place, because the horse clearly does not feel safe within the human's presence. Instead, if you notice, I'm still standing in the same spot. I'm merely shifting my weight back and forth in response to her stress indicators. I'm not backing off. I'm not running her around. I'm not getting hyped up emotionally. And on the note of emotions, let's just discuss. In a herd, the leaders, or the horses that are most followed, are typically the ones that have the most stable emotions. So consider the most spooky horse you've ever seen. They quite literally get scared by everything every 5 seconds, including their own shadow and things they've seen every day. The horses herd in the wild is not going to choose that horse and follow that horse as the leader in any scenario, because that horse is not emotionally stable. So by me standing here and not emotionally reacting to her nipping at me like that, keep in mind she did not actually bite me and she never has. But the fact that I am standing here not giving her any emotional reaction to that will prove to her that I can be trusted. And pairing that with my responding carefully to all of her very subtle stress indicators, we will be able to work through this behavior and build a relationship together with her consent, and one that makes her feel safe around the human rather than threatened. As you see here, we see those ears going back. She's preparing, she's considering whether she's going to bite. There she looks away instead, so I back off, and we see that ear pop up like, oh, okay, you understand. And then immediately she goes back to this relaxed expression. Now I go to shift my weight forward there, and her ears are very clear. I'm not interested. And while right now she's giving me a lot of no's, over time, the fact that I'm respecting those no's will completely build a relationship and trust between the two of us. And there will be a point where I can approach her and can ask her to sniff my hand without this biting behavior. And then eventually we can progress past that into her feeling safe being touched. But just as a reminder, if I would react to this behavior emotionally, get irritated, angry, afraid, frustrated, or any of those negative emotions, and then begin running this horse around the pen, then I'm only damaging both our relationship and how she views humans. So that is never, ever, ever the way to handle this type of behavior. And even if she was actually biting me, this is still how I would handle the behavior. The only difference is I would move to outside the panel, and I would start with feeding her some feed from a bucket through the panel as protected contact, so she couldn't actually bite me, but we would do the same process that I'm showing right here. I sure hope that you find this information as fascinating as I do. If you did, please be sure to share it with somebody. And thanks so much for watching and learning.